Hey everyone! Today we're going to be working on a moss stitch beanie. This is a quick and easy weekend crochet project, and you can use any yarn you want as well as any hook. Just make sure that the hook that you get matches the yarn that you're using. So if you go grab all your supplies, let's get started. So I'm going to start with a slip knot, and because I'm using a very thin yarn, I'm using two skeins simultaneously. So I'm going to work both of my yarns into a slip knot, and I'm going to start with a chain. Let me see if I don't, there we go. I'm going to make it 8 or 9 stitches. There we go, it looks like maybe 9's the winner. And then I'm just going to chain one more, and I'm going to start to single crochet in every chain of this stitch. And we're going to create the ribbing for our beanie, so you can use any color you like. I just had a little extra yarn left over from a blanket I made in these same colors, so that's why I'm using this blue one. And this is going to be a beanie for a newborn baby. I'm going with the size 3. It's like 3 to 6 month, but you can make this as long as you want for you if you're going to use it for an adult or for a child. So now I'm going to chain 1, and this next row here, we're not going to work. This first little stitch was our chain 1 in the stitch right next to it. So the first stitch of the row, we're going to work in our back post, and we're going to single crochet. And that's just a back post single crochet in every one of these stitches. And that will give us a nice ribbing effect. It'll also make this a lot more, it'll make it a lot stretchier, so it makes it really nice for a beanie. But like I was saying, if you're going to be using it for an adult, just measure out, make it the size of your head. Go with a little bit smaller if you want a snug beanie. If you're not sure what size to make the beanie, I will post some of the information in the description below. So I'll put some of the sizing that I typically go with if I'm making it as a present for somebody. So that way you kind of get an idea of what size to make. So here I'm going to chain in this last stitch, just there we go, make my single crochet, and then we chain, turn our work around, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So in our very first stitch, so not this one that we just made, not the chain one, the one next to it, we're going to start again with our back post, or our back stitch. What is it, back loop? Maybe it's a back loop single crochet. So I've been crocheting here for a while, so I made several rows of this, and for a baby's beanie, so anywhere for a 3 to 6 month old baby, you want it to be about 15 to 17 inches. And this will stretch a little bit. And remember, as you wash it, it will also stretch out. So what, I ended up with about 17 inches. Great. So that's where I'm going to want to stop. So we're going to join the ends together so that we make, so we close out and make the beanie round. And that way the rest of the project will just work in the round. So we're going to join our two ends. Make sure that it's not twisted. I don't have enough space to show you here, but just make sure it's not twisted. So we're going to insert our hook through both of the single crochets. So the single crochet to the front part, and then the single crochet to the other end of the beanie. That way we can sew it together, if you will, but we're just going to crochet it together. So we're going to just insert the hook, and we're going to crochet in slip stitches. You could do a single crochet, but I think a slip stitch just hides it a little bit better, that this is where you crocheted, or that this is where you joined the ends. So I'm just going to slip stitch in every one of these stitches, and then we can move on to the other part of the beanie. Okay, and I've got my last stitch. And there we go. And now we're ready. So I'll just cut this extra yarn, and I'm going to be weaving it through a little bit later in the project, so I'll just weave in all the ends at the end. So I'll just insert my hook and then just grab my ends and then just yarn over, and I'm going to pull them through this loop right here. There we go. And that way I can just tighten it, and it won't unravel while I keep working, and that way I can go through and just weave them in later. But see, that's how it'll look, and it's kind of hidden. I mean, you can take your time and do it very, very neatly if you really want it hidden. Now you can make this the inside of the beanie or the outside, however you prefer. So just to be extra sure, I'm really afraid that this is gonna like unravel. So I'm just gonna tie a knot, and that way I can just be sure that it's not gonna come undone. Now for this next part, I'm just taking my next yarn, so it's my other color, and I'm going to also work with two threads simultaneously. And sorry, this takes me a little while because I'm trying to see it through the camera. So we're just going to pull our yarn through. Make sure you leave a long enough tail that you can weave in later, because you don't want this part to become detached from the rim of your hat. So I'm going to, there we go, chain one on here with with the tail and with the yarn I'm working with. And now I'm just going to start working my single crochets. So with this, it's going to be, it's kind of hard to explain it. So it's just a single crochet in every stitch, but it would seem like you're going to try to fit 4 stitches in there, but really it's 3 stitches per each of the ribbing. So it's on either side of the raised part of the ribbing, and then 1 on the space. So if you do too many single crochets, you're going to be able to tell, because it's going to be, your hat's going to look, the top part's just going to come out, so it's going to look kind of like the brim of a hat. So if you did that, you have way too many stitches. So just kind of work your way around, and then once you get to the end, here I'm on my very last stitch, we're just going to join them by crocheting into this very first stitch of this first row, and we're just going to slip stitch through. So that's our first row, and see how it's all flush? That means I didn't crochet too many stitches, which is good. Okay, so now for this next row, we're going to make a single crochet. So you chain 1, make a single crochet, and then you chain 1 and then skip a stitch. So chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet. We're going to do this the whole row. All right, so now I've reached the end of the row, and I'm just going to single crochet here and chain 1, and I'm going to join my edges. Let me see if I can insert my hook. It's kind of far, so that works. Okay, so I'm just going to single crochet or slip stitch, sorry, and that is our second row. So I'm going to be switching colors, so I grabbed my new colors, and now I just line up my edges or the ends of my yarn. There we go, and I'm going to leave a nice long tail that I can weave in later, and I'm just going to slip through this last stitch I made, and now we're going to chain 1, and we're just going to tighten everything. So since this little tail, I'm going to hide it, so I'm just going to lay it against the edge of my work. So let me go through and just chain a stitch or 2, and then I can start hiding my tail. So we're going to be working in that chain 1 space, so in the skip stitch, that's where we're going to make our single crochet, and this whole row is going to be like the row before. So we make a single crochet, and then we chain 1, and single crochet, and we chain 1. Remember to make your single crochet in that the skip 1 space of the previous row. So I'll just keep working this, and I will see you when I get to the end of the row. Okay, so I've worked my way around, and I'm just going to insert my hook right here. See, it's the last space. So I'm in my single crochet, and see, I've got all my ends, so I'm trying to get everything untangled. All right. Okay, I thought better of it as I was crocheting along, so I was going to hide on my tails. So we're going to take the first color, and we're just going to fold it in over the before we make our very last slip stitch, and that's so that it hides it a little better. So if we choose to make this beanie a reversible beanie, we can do that. So, and now we're going to switch our color again. So I'm going to take that first color. So if you were going to keep crocheting in the darker color, you can keep going at this point. Just leave the lighter thread in the front. I want to switch colors, so I'm just going to move all my yarn around. And here I'm going to put that tail end I was going to hide in my previous row. I decided to hide it better in this row. So I'm just going to make my chain 1, and we're going to do what we've been working on before. So we're going to make our single crochet in the skip 1 space, and then a chain 1. So it's single crochet. So it's single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, and then you just skip that single crochet of the previous row. So I'm going to keep working several rows this way. Just remember to tuck in that other yarn, the one that you're not working with, just kind of fold it into the front of the next stitch. That way you can keep hiding it, and you can just kind of, you don't have to weave in so many ends at the end. So I'll crochet a few rows and I'll show you what this looks like. So here are several rows. See, here are all my little tail ends, and I've already cut my thread because this is as long as I want to make it. So I made it a total of, it's about 5.5 inches in height for my beanie. And here, let me just show you what I'm working. Yeah, so it's almost 6 inches, and this is for a baby beanie. Like I said, just check the description below and I'll tell you, I'll give you some general numbers that I use for beanies. So I'm going to take my threads over here, and I'm going to grab my yarn needle, although this is more of a, I think it's called the taper needle. So I just like it because it's a little bit thinner, and since I am using a fingering yarn, I don't really need a big yarn needle for this. So we're just going to sew the top closed. So I'm going to pass it through the top 2 stitches. So where I made my knot is where I'm going to start stitching. And then I'm just going to pinch everything together, and I'll give this 2 stitches. Here we go. And we're going to fold the ends in. So these other little ends on the side, we're just going to fold those in, and we're going to sew those together. So I'll do this to both sides, and then that extra bit of the top that I'm holding between my fingers, I'm going to pinch that in one more time as well, kind of like I did right here, but I'm going to do that with both the little sides, and I'm going to close those up. So just go through and sew the top part of it. Remember that this, I did flip it inside out, so I decided that this is the part that I want to be inside, so we get that closed out. So now for the pom-pom, I'm just going to take I'm going to take all the threads of yarn that I have that are in this color and wrap them around my hand tons and tons of times. So I want this to be a really full little poof. So I just wrapped it. I didn't even count how many times, just tons of times, so that it's super, super thick. And we're just going to cut the ends, and we're going to pull them through the middle. And I got to make sure I grabbed all of them. And that's the other end. All right, and we're just going to wrap them around all of the bunch of yarn that I have on my hand. So I'll just pull my hand out and then just wrap it around. So let's make that a little neater. There we go. And make sure you start pulling this tight. And I'm going to knot it, so I'm just going to use half of this yarn. I'm going to wrap around again and knot it with this other half. I'm just going to make a really tight knot because this is going to be the center of the pom-pom, so we want this to be nice and tight. There we go. So now I'll just kind of move this around, make sure it's all even. Grab my hook, and that way I can grab this little end. There we go. Sorry, I gotta put this a little more in the center. Okay, and I'm just gonna pull this little end through this side, and that way it will become part of my pom-pom. And this one's already facing the right direction, so great. So now I will just grab some scissors and start cutting all these little loops. So I know it's kind of messy. Here we go. So we're going to want to put our scissors through here and cut right through this top part. So let me grab those. And you just cut all the way through all of these. And I'm going to do that for all of the little, for the whole pom-pom. So I've cut all of the little pom-pom parts off, or all the little loops off. There we go. That was easier to say it that way. And now I'm just going to give my pom-pom a haircut. So I'm just going to trim this go as low as you want to make it as poofy a pom-pom as you want. If you like this look, just kind of cut off the ends and make them even. If you want a fluffier pom-pom, you might have to go shorter. So just kind of cut through until you find the look that you want for it. And I will see you when you're done cutting it. There you go. So here's my little poof. It's all nice and cut. I'll just have to go and clean it through a little bit better. And we're just going to attach it to our hat. So we're going to flip our hat back to the inside because I had these 2 threads that I'd left. If you didn't have any extra thread that you were going to be using to sew it through, that's okay. Just grab some of your extra yarn or grab some sewing thread if you want to, and then just thread it through a needle and then just sew the pom-pom on. So I just had this extra bit, so instead of weaving it in, I'm just going to use it to attach the pom-pom. So I will flip my beanie back the right way, so because we just had it inside out, and I'm going to just sew through. So just go in and out on the beanie and through the pom-pom to make sure that we attach it correctly. I'm not going to have enough yarn for this, so I'm just going to use both these little ends and then I'll tie them together. And I'm also going to do tie it on with additional thread because this is also for a baby, so I don't want it to come off at any point, and that way it'll stay on when the parents wash it and everything. So just go through, make sure it's really securely fastened to the beanie, and yeah, I'll see you when I finish attaching this. So I'm just finishing knotting up that extra bit of yarn I had left, and I'll flip it back and we are done. So I'll just take all these little extra threads and then just weave them in, and that's it. That's our little baby beanie for a 3 to 6 month old baby. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and remember to subscribe if you want to see any other content kind of like this one, and thanks for watching.